Thank you very much. We are live. Welcome back together, Joint Transportation and Military Affairs Committee. It's good to see everybody. Today we're going to take up thoughts for interim topics for the coming months. We want to start this afternoon. Actually, it doesn't really matter. I think we start with military. What do you think? Yeah. Let's get going with presentations on any military topics. General, good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies. Good to have you here. And
good afternoon, Chairman.
Let's chop right through these if we can, everybody, so that we can get everybody in.
All right. So I'm going to get the expert to do it. Major Maury will brief the committee on interim topics today, sir. So I will turn it over to Major Maury.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Major Jackie Maury. I'm the legislative liaison for the Wyoming Military Department, and we have proposed 4 interim topics for your consideration over the next year. Like to go through them in our priority order, what we see as most important, and then on down the list. So our first topic for consideration is leveraging state resources to encourage recruiting and retention in the Wyoming National Guard. A topic that we took up last year was in that same vein. That's the Dependent Care Bill, House Bill 16, that you heard and passed this year. So we want to further explore ways that we can encourage young folks to join and then stay in the Wyoming National Guard. So we recognize that there are many forces at work that maybe we're swimming upstream on this particular topic. In the Wyoming Air National Guard, we're currently sitting right about 93% manned. In the Wyoming Army National Guard, 97% manned. I think the issue with telling you those numbers is maybe they sound high, but when our goal is 102% in strength, 93 and 97% are falling short of our preferred state. Some of the issues that we recognize are propensity to serve. We know that nationwide, the number of young folks who consider military service as a viable career path has gone down in the last 10, 20 years. We saw some numbers just this week coming out of the Army that only 23% of young folks are even eligible to serve in the military for a variety of factors. If we look at health, height, weight, prescription drugs they've been on, most young folks would actually not be able to join. So we've already narrowed the pool of people that we're looking at. The Guard is an incredible resource in terms of the military because it is a state resource first. And so individuals that join carry the burden of a dual mission. So we respond at the call of the governor, as we've seen happen a number of times in the last 18 months, most recently with Operation Patch Adams, where we put airmen and soldiers in community health facilities to help during the COVID surge. And then we also have our federal mission, where we can be called up as the strategic reserve of the Army and the U.S. Air Force. That comes with it a higher burden of service. So most of our members serve just on a part-time status. They come to drill once a month, and then they do roughly 2 weeks of annual training each year. And so it's a big ask for them to wear those multiple hats of a community member, an employee in a private business, and then their guard hat, juggling that with their family. And so we're just asking for some support and outside of the box thinking of how we get more individuals, more young people to choose this career path. Some of the ideas that have been thrown on the table that we haven't fleshed out, that's what we hope to do in the interim session. Can we leverage hunting and fishing in Wyoming? Can we give a benefit to Wyoming Guardsmen in that realm? Can we look at a way to incentivize our currently serving members to bring us recruits? So you give us a lead and they enlist, they raise their right hand, they make it through training. Is there a cash bonus we can provide? Is there a way to look at the state of Wyoming's military leave program? So we're aware of 3 cases in the last year of military members, 2 guardsmen, 1 reservist who were hired by the state of Wyoming and could not access their military leave for the first year. And then an additional topic added just recently was, are there ways that we can make it easier for our military members who get a skill set in the military to transition that to the civilian workforce in terms of certification? So those are some of the ideas that we have under that first topic. Our second topic would be state active duty reform. So state active duty is the status that our guardsmen go in when they're called upon by the governor. Operation Patch Adams is a little different. Those were actually active duty orders because of the FEMA mission. However, most of the time when we call up our guardsmen, let's say for a flood response, they come on to service as state of Wyoming employees. At the end of the year, they get an additional W-2 from the state of Wyoming. We pay them as if they were in their military status, but it doesn't come with all of the benefits, which can sometimes make it a difficult choice for our guardsmen to select that. For example, they may not have the same recognition by their employer that they're going to military duty because it's not a federal order. So we would like to explore that. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question, and I don't want to belabor the point. I just need some clarifications. So when they're called up, their benefits don't accrue. Does that include retirement?
Yes, sir. That's exactly right.
Thank you.
Yep. So they could be on state active duty for 2 months, and that time does not count towards their federal retirement package in the Guard. Some other items that we've considered is how do we better prepare or leverage the state active duty mechanism for a cyber response in Wyoming. Governor Gordon is on the Council of Governors, and he is one of the co-chairs of the cybersecurity work group. So he's actively looking at how is Wyoming postured to respond to a large-scale cybersecurity event, and how would we use the Guard, and can we get ahead of that before we actually need them? And then an idea that came to us from Texas is can we pay for, at some point, if a guardsman is on state active duty for a certain number of days, can we pay for their medical insurance premiums? That's something that would happen if they were on a federal order. Is there a way to do that? Stay on your insurance, maybe TRICARE Reserve Select that you pay for each month, and then the state will pay the cost of your premium. Our third topic is statutory cleanup, and this is specific to the addition of the Space Force as an additional uniformed service and needing to go through state statute and make sure that we recognize the Space Force, that there's language that recognizes the service of those guardians, and wanting to make sure we stay on top of that. And finally, Chairman, our fourth and final topic is a review of the external investigation or review that's being completed right now, specific to sexual harassment and sexual assault, and wanting an opportunity to look at that report when it's available, to see if there are any things that we can do legislatively to improve our processes in the Wyoming National Guard.
Major, thank you very much. Well done. Any questions, committee, from anyone? Anything for our military department? I think those look great. Major, thanks for giving that some thought and sharing those with us. And we're going to take those under advisement and visit as a committee. And then as we move on the next couple of days, the chairman will get together and try to put together some things, and we'll be in touch. So thank you. General, any thoughts you have? Anything else?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman. But again, I just want to thank everybody for the hard work and everything this session. A lot of contentious issues going on, and the committee and all the folks were just great to work with, and appreciate the leadership of the two chairmen and the participation of all our folks here in the committee. It's a pleasure to work with all of you, and look forward to the upcoming interim. Please stay safe and stay warm out there.
I know I speak for the committee and staying right back at you. Appreciate all of you guys and all the help you gave us. So look forward to, we'll be in touch soon. Thank you very much. Anybody else want to speak to any military items? Any thoughts regarding military topics for the interim? Okay, let's move on to transportation items. Starting off with the Department of Transportation, Director Reiner. Good to see you again. Mr. Rossetti, good to see you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, a pleasure to be here in this fourth quarter. So looking forward to the next year. So for the record, Luke Reiner, Director YDOT. Hey, in terms of interim topics, I know you have the list in front of you, so I'll be brief. Really, the first item we'd recommend we look at involves electric vehicles. Lots of sort of issues going on in that realm. $27 million coming in IDJA in the next 5 years in that space. So our recommendation is we take a look at that. There is certainly a crossover with corporations is what I might suggest. And as I talked to the chairman of the PSC, or the Public Service Commission, the corporations is very interested in looking at an aspect of this whole idea of electrifying. And I think there's some crossover. And so I just mentioned that as we look at, the different aspects of putting electric charging stations on our transportation system. Mr. Chairman, then moving on, would certainly think about towing being a topic. And that's, not the 5, digits on your toes, but the hooks that are out on the road. And there has been a lot of upheaval in that space, specifically in the last 3 or 4 months. And I know some of you have been privileged on some of those emails, but as a state, we do not regulate that industry. And there have been some really exorbitant fees charged to tow vehicles off of the road. And I do think we owe it to the public to take a look at what's going on in that space.
Director?
Director,
we've
quick
got a
question. How many states regulate towing, and do any of our adjacent states do that?
Director?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, I tell you, in terms of how many states, I don't know right now. I do know that Colorado to our south does.
Thank you.
Okay, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, our next item then would really be taking a look at highway safety. In your list, there's a couple subcomponents on that. I think as we looked at that, we really wanted to try and address something that we haven't, really worked hard on over the years, and it continues to fail. So there's some ideas in here about, hey, let's take a look at road closure gates, because those things continue to be, blown by. And I think we need to take a look at that. Certainly child safety restraints is always on the list. And one item on that list that we've talked about here before, it involves our, DUI laws. I did go in front of Joint Judiciary today and ask that they would consider that again. And that really has to do with this whole aspect of what we have going now is, right now it's, if you get a warrant for, to forcibly draw your bodily fluids, about 30% of the local agencies across the state will not enforce that. And that word is getting out. And so if you drive under the influence, specifically of alcohol or now increasingly drugs, the word on the street is, hey, if you resist in these certain areas of the state, you'll walk, and there's no recourse. And it's having a chilling effect on our ability to keep the road safe. It's having a chilling effect on our law enforcement being able to do their job. And so again, we've pushed that to Joint Judiciary, but I think it's from the transportation aspect, if you help support that we would appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, the other item that we have is, the old statute update, and we probably have 3 or 4 or 5 items on there that we'd like to bring. I don't, unless you want me to walk through those individually, I won't, but I could certainly touch on them if you'd like. Maybe I'll touch on a couple just because they've been referred from other committees. One is off-road vehicles. We had a bill this last year that tried to do a couple things with off-road vehicles. One was to put it on the interstate, but the other portion of that I'd like to readdress during this interim is, as part of the effort for state parks to put these off-road vehicles on trails, some entities like counties can designate a road as a trail. What we now have is, based on that, is unlicensed and uninsured and vehicles on our public roads, which I don't think is a good mix. And I'd really like to take a look at saying, hey, if you're going to be on the public road, whether it's a trail or not a trail, you got to meet the safety requirements and you got to be insured, and you've got to register those vehicles. So that's one of the statute items that I'd look at. Certainly, we do have an issue right now with our highway patrol, and one of the things you never want to talk about is being killed in the line of duty. But right now, as we sort of been exploring statutes with components of our agency, there is some real disadvantage to being killed on the line of duty after you hit 20 than before. And so we think we really should take a look at that, just in terms of sort of leveling the playing field and creating equity in that space. I know we've talked about this before, but employee moving expenses is a statute, and it's really important to us in terms of our workforce. I have asked Mr. Rossetti to work with A&I, and I'm hopeful that will be part of their compensation package. If it's not, I would respectfully ask that we look at it here, because it just continues to negatively impact the career development of our professional force in YDOT across the board. There's a couple other here that I don't need to talk about now. I think the other item that I would bring up is in statute updates that you'll hear about is the concept of an HOV lane. And we have certain communities in the state that are very interested in having an HOV. And I think that topic is in here. We would certainly support that. And really the one we're talking about right now is the area of greatest concern currently in the state in terms of congestion is Highway 22 out in Teton County. And we are starting to do serious planning in that space later this year because of the issues that are out there. I think when you plan, you have to have sort of the legal background to plan for what you want to do. Right now, YDOT could put in a HOV lane, but there's no authority to enforce it. And without enforcement, there's probably no benefit to the lane. And so that's really the focus there. And certainly I think something we should look at. I say, hey, that's not a guarantee they go in what the final plan is, but you can't put them in if you can't enforce them. So that's the nature of that one.
Ironically, Director, sorry to interrupt, but the most congested area of the state is the most interested in this topic, and there's not a lot of room over there. So I do think that it deserves our attention a little bit. And committee, does everybody know what we're talking about here? Those lanes? Director, tell us what those lanes are. And I understand that that there is some funding available in the infrastructure at the federal level. But anyway, real quickly, run us through that.
Sure, Mr.
What are we talking
Chairman.
about?
Just to probably the elevator speech on HOV lanes, high occupancy vehicles. And when you get into these areas that are congested, as is Highway 22, which is the highway that goes from Jackson over Teton Pass into Idaho. And that, without a doubt, is our busiest two-lane road in the state. And it's bumper to bumper. And we are starting the plan to redo that road here later this fall. But the way a high occupancy vehicle, a lane works is you can only be in that lane if you got more than X number of people in your vehicle. And if you break that rule, then it's a ticket. And if you go down to Denver, they've got HOV lanes. And if you go to other big metropolises, they do have them. It certainly fits within the priorities of the current administration because it encourages less vehicles on the road and it encourages carpooling. So not only do you have less tailpipe emissions, you also have fewer vehicles on the road. And so from the policy perspective from the current administration, it fits in nicely. And there is, as the chairman said, there's fiscal benefits to following the current policy.
So, Director, next topic that I wanted to make sure before I forgot to throw it out, I'm looking at Mr. Rossetti. we considered a bill that just didn't make it on time through the committee of the whole on our side, that permanent licenses for trailers and RVs. And I wondered if you had anything else in mind on the licensing front or in your bailiwick that we could maybe combine a couple things. Even if we don't, I was intrigued by the idea that somebody could license a trailer for life and whether or not we could get that to the finish line.
Mr. Chairman, Taylor Rossetti, Support Services at YDOT. I think that could be part of a good, robust discussion as part of this overall statute update. The other thing that kind of falls into that realm is that as we move forward with the Transportation Information System, TIS, there likely will be a need to define maybe how data is stored and passed to us from the counties. So I think both those topics would be beneficial for the committee to discuss, and I think we could get the counties to participate in those discussions, because when it comes to those permanent registrations and any of the titling things, the counties really do most of those functions, and then that information is passed to us. So it is in both the county's interest and our interest as the state to make sure we're on the same page with those topics.
Okay, thanks for letting me interject. And Director, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr.
Please
Chairman.
proceed with anything else.
Thank you. I think I'd probably close with two. One is, a lot of stress on our right of way. And I think there's some interest in taking a look at what the rules and regs are in terms of right of way use. And then I think the counties are here, but the one that's always out there in front of us is this concept of how we fund that phenomenal comm system we have, otherwise known as Wyoming. Mr. Chairman, that's a short rundown of many topics.
Any questions, committee? Any questions of Department of Transportation? Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question on autonomous vehicles. Could you update us briefly on that and what you think we ought to be looking at?
So, yeah, briefly, Director, we don't have that very prominently on the list here, but certainly.
Yeah,
it
Mr.
could be
Chairman
considered.
and Representative, I would not push back on that, and we do need to take a look at that. Obviously, there's been two bills up the last 2 years, which haven't passed.
Yeah, okay.
So
Okay. It certainly is out there, Director,
it
for sure.
is out there.
Appreciate that.
I would, maybe here's what I'd share as I think through that. We did have a request that came in probably last month from a company who wanted to do platooning. And two truck platooning is really where they were starting. And the concept there is driver in the first one, autonomous vehicle directly behind it. And their question really wasn't whether they could do it with an autonomous vehicle. Their question was, hey, your current laws say there has to be X amount of space between vehicles, and will you waive it for us as we platoon? To which the answer was, hey, listen, you got to understand, under the rules of Wyoming, you may not, we say again, not have a vehicle on the road that does not have a driver in it. And so if we wish to have those, and they're starting to be out there, then there's probably a reason to relook it. Widespread use of autonomous vehicles, it's not coming for a while. And so I think it's always a question of timing and priority, but certainly there has been a request to have them on our roads. I don't know if you've seen, there are signs now when you come into the state that say, hey, if you're running an autonomous vehicle, give us a call or pull in the next port of entry. That was our effort to capture what's going on our roads and to remind everybody about the requirement. Hey, if you're in Wyoming, you got to have somebody behind the wheel.
Okay,
Thank you for that question.
Thank you for
and
that.
topic.
Mr. Rossetti, anything you want to add or?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. We may have a question for you a little later.
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And like my counterparts before, would certainly thank this committee for lots of really good work this last year and lots of success on the bills that went through.
Thank you for that, Director. I'm pretty proud of the committee myself. Co-chairman's okay too, tell you that.
Thanks for including me.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, we've got other transportation issues. Please don't be shy. Please come forward. present your thoughts, your considerations for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to dive in real quick, House Bill 119, I brought this last year.
Representative, would you identify yourself, please, for those
Absolutely.
online? Thank you.
Representative Jeremy Haraldson, House District Number 4. This last year, I brought House Bill 119, which was kind of a conversation in regards to the tow companies and the DOT call-out list. And so the concept really going forward, and I just want to give you guys, and I'm sure you've all heard it, but just give you an example is when you get 3 calls in the course of 2 weeks that represent over $150,000, and they weren't massive issues. And so you just realize there's an issue. I don't want to see private entity regulated by the government. It's not our job. But when we have a DOT call-out list, all of a sudden we now have people stuck. And so just know that I'm here to help in this discussion, in this conversation. And I believe that DOT is already working with a work group on this, but they will need some legislative help moving forward with some of the codified law to make it reality. So again, my goal and my goal in the bill that I brought is not to regulate the towing industry as a whole. It's just to regulate the call-out list. So with that, I stand for any questions.
Representative, the co-chairman has a quick question.
Representative Haraldson, you indicated you got a number of calls. Were they related to interstate events, 2-lane highways, 4-lane highways? I'm just quickly curious as to where those events occurred.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Chairman Burkhart. So the majority of those really high dollar cases had to do with interstate events. My county, if you're not aware of it, or my district, we're very famous for our wind, and semi trucks don't last long in our country. And so they have a tendency of being more on the side. They sleep in our country a lot, and so they have to get flipped over. And so that's where a majority of this came in. Plus, we've had some wild snowstorms this year. So it's just I think it was kind of just a perfect storm, no pun intended, that lined up to where we had a lot of the issues. But we even had a situation where an individual, they had to do a rollback wrecker call and some storage fees for an individual who made some mistakes. And it's kind of a blow when you have to pay $2,000 to get your truck out of impound to get towed 2.5 miles and sit there for 5 days, 6 days. So it's just little things like that. And I know that's completely separate, but I think there's some bad actor stuff that just needs to be addressed. And I believe that once that's addressed, I think we can definitely clean this up.
So Representative, I always call after I make it through Bordeaux. I call home and say, hey, I made it. But anyway, no, you're right. And honestly, Representative, really appreciate you coming and bringing this, because I think it is something we need to take a look at from all different directions. And those of you who live on the interstates know this issue a lot more than those who don't. So
yeah. And I just thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I'm glad that this is an interim topic so we can get all the players at the table and have a conversation, which wouldn't happen in the bill. And that's why, if you notice, there was 0 co-sponsors on it, and I did not ask for it to come out of the drawer. I wanted it to just be a conversation piece moving forward. And so thank you very much for making that reality.
Representative, I call those billboard bills, and sometimes a billboard is just as good as a passage.
Thank you very much.
Anything for the representative, you guys? Thank you very much. Anybody else like to come forward, visit with us about a potential topic?
I don't know if I like this or.
Yeah, please sit down. Absolutely. No, be ready, and here we go. 1, 2,
Thank you,
3.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Nick Agopian. I'm here today representing the town of Jackson. On the topic that Director Reiner had spoken of HOV lanes, the interest specifically is the town of Jackson manages the bus and public transportation system for the valley. Those are the highest occupancy vehicles. And so this is something, the way that the director framed it is correct. We don't believe that enforcement exists in the statute. We want to make sure that it's being considered. So then during the planning process that might begin, and that sounded like the 3rd quarter of this year, that can be considered. So with that, we would support the committee looking at HOV lanes. Hopefully it's an easy solution that can go in their statutory cleanup.
So thank you, Nick. Appreciate you being here. you know, what comes to mind is the struggles we had with the Teton Pass bill. And I think going into the interim, we'll have to steel ourselves to the fact that this is a different part of the world up there, committee. And if we choose to take up a topic up there, different, isn't it? Nick, you and I have attended a couple of events up there and gone to meetings, and wow, in the summer, it's crazy. I mean, it's.
Mr. Chairman, yes, I think probably a lot of the committee members here and even folks here in the audience have been to Teton County in the summer, and they are struggling with the congestion on Highway 22. And I believe that's the genesis that YDOT has identified based on the traffic count to move forward with addressing this, another unique solution for this, you know, for Teton County, for the town of Jackson here in Wyoming. And hopefully it's something that we can find as simple a fix as possible. So we can we're not proposing that this is the solution. We want to make sure that we have the ability to understand what it might do in terms of helping create a solution.
Okay, good enough. Thank you. Appreciate that, Nick. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mike Smith. I represent Jackson Hole Mountain Resort and Teton Village Association, and just want to also throw our support behind addressing this topic. Obviously, when you have congestion on that road, all of our employees and guests are in that traffic as well, and that impacts our folks greatly. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. We'd sure like to be at your facility about right now. But committee, anything for the town of Jackson or Teton Village? Okay. Ms. Little, take it away.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kelly Little. I'm with the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. We submitted a topic to research the creation and implementation of a county gravel road management system. Currently, there is an existing system for paved roads that is facilitated by the Wyoming Technology Transfer Center at the University of Wyoming. So we do have some data on the status of and the condition of paved county roads. However, we do not have any ability to kind of do that research and gather that data for gravel county roads. So the topic would be to research the implementation of this system, and considerations would include, the formation of the system, the cost of the system, and the resources needed to bring that to fruition. So that is one topic, and I guess I'll stand for questions on that topic if you have any, and then I just want to touch on a few other things if I may.
What's the ratio of gravel roads to paved roads in the counties? Do you know, right, just a ballpark?
A ballpark would be, I would say, between 60 to 70% of county roads are gravel.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Co-Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Ms. Little, I just need some explanation. Are you looking for a study, legislation? I'm not clear exactly what you're looking for.
Sure, Mr. Chairman and Chairman Burkhart. I think a study would be a good start. The paved county road management system was created in 2014. It's under the direction of Dr. K at, like I mentioned, at the Wyoming Technology Transfer Center. That system is funded by fuel tax or gasoline tax money, the 14% that the counties get. Part of that comes off the top to pay for that system. So we wanted to work with the Wyoming Technology Transfer Center and this committee they would do the technical, this is what a system would look like. This is what we need to do to gather baseline data, that kind of thing. And then obviously the funding of that system would be a solution we need to come up with.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Little. Any questions on that topic? You indicated you had one more?
Well, I just want to touch base, just touch on a couple of the topics that the department brought up. The permanent registration of trailers and RVs, obviously the counties would have a vested interest in that. Not only are, those things happen in the county offices, but the counties do receive some of that revenue. Those registration fees are distributed like property tax. So a majority of that revenue goes to schools, but the rest of it goes to political subdivisions. So we would definitely want to work with this committee to make sure that there is no detriment to those political subdivisions and the school systems. Another one would be the county interaction with the new transportation information system. We would definitely want to work with the committee on that one as well. I don't speak for the clerks or the treasurers, But I know that WCCA would be willing to help with that. And then the final one is the Wyoming funding that was brought up by Chairman Burkhart and the department. And we are committed, again, I want to reiterate that we are committed to finding that long-term funding solution. So we'd be happy to continue to work on that. We know we got a reprieve through ARP funding, but don't want to be at square one when that runs out. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the county commissioners? For those of you who may have to leave shortly, I would ask if you are willing to do a little ranking of these topics and get them to us, Chairman. That would be helpful to us. So that's why we provided that sheet to you. So please think about rankings. Please come forward. We got to hustle. We're short on time for some of our committee members. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Keith Kennedy on behalf of the Wyoming Association of Ag Business Association, Crop Improvement, and Wheat Growers. As part of your statute updates, I'd encourage you or the Agriculture Committee to look at 315921, which is the farm vehicle statute. It has not been updated since 1986. 16 years ago, the Society of Agriculture Engineers, which has now been actually renamed, updated their standards for agriculture equipment. And probably the biggest part of that change was that there are vehicles now that are strictly farm vehicles that can, in many places, legally travel up to 40 miles an hour and display a slow-moving vehicle sign, which our statute now currently does not allow. There are some other signage and lighting requirements for those slightly newer vehicles because this change was done by that association in 2006. There's also a federal register notice in 2016 where Federal Highway Administration recognized this, and I would encourage either your committee or the Agriculture Committee to take that subject up. It does fit very well here with the statute update. And with that, I'd welcome your questions.
Any questions, committee? Thank you, Keith. Appreciate that. Good idea. Please come forward. We know you're Richard Garrett, but could you identify yourself, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're exactly right, of course, always. Richard Garrett, I'm State Government Relations Director with the American Heart Association, and I call your attention to Senate File 14, a bill that you all worked during the interim and which now itself needs a little bit of CPR, and I think it will be a very easy interim topic to move forward for the next session, if I may say so. And I know time is short. There are probably other folks behind me, so I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. You did good work on the interim, so did the committee.
The committee did very excellent work during the interim, and it was really a pleasure to have the opportunity to work with Senator McCune on that too. So.
Appreciate that. We've got it as a bullet item, and I bet that third meeting might be a really good target point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Mr. Chairman, I think we've got some folks online, do we not, Kim? I'm looking over. Can we allow maybe all three of them in to the room? How about if we take Ms. Urquhart? She came on first, and so. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lori Urquhart with the Wyoming Airport Coalition. And we would welcome the opportunity to continue the discussions we began in 2020 related to the funding of our airports in Wyoming. We did not totally hit the mark in the legislation in 2021. And respecting the budget session time constraints, we opted not to bring legislation forward this session. However, we are anxious to work with key stakeholders, the legislators, the county commissioners, the city council, municipalities, tourism, oil, gas, and mining industries to work on funding options for ongoing and stable funding of our airports. 37 of the 40 airports in Wyoming are heavily subsidized by either county or municipal governments. Working with the matching requirements from federal infrastructure funding over the next several years will require a lot of local matching dollars. So the question is, where does that money come from? How do we maximize those dollars? And Mr. Chairman, we would hope that you'd consider us for this interim study and hopefully answer some of these questions. And we look forward to working with you over the interim. Thank you.
Okay, we have Devin Brubaker listed also, and before we go to Ms. Irwin, let's just see if Devin is still around, and if so, it's the same topic. And so,
Mr. Chairman,
he's not on.
Devin was not able to join us today. That's why you got me instead of him.
oh, well, we win. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. Look forward to working with you. Ms. Irwin, thank you for your patience. Please take it away.
Yes, good morning, Chairman and committee. I just wanted to add my support from Powder River Basin Resource Council on the EV charging corridors. I work on energy transition in Southwest Wyoming, and there has been tremendous excitement about how these corridors could especially help small communities in that region. So just wanted to add that plug. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Any questions, committee? For Ms. Irwin? Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, one more time, I'm looking in the room for anyone who would like to come forward. We do have a couple of topics that were not touched on, I think, committee, that are in our packets. So I don't want to miss anything. Committee members, do you have anything that you would like to bring up? There is a topic that has been talked about in the hallways, and that is pedestrian safety. I just throw that out so that we've got that on the radar screen. Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick, we've had some tragic accidents in our county related to pedestrian safety. And I just quickly said, I'd like to see if we can include this on the list and take a look at this interim. See if we can invite testimony and develop a plan as a committee for the next best step.
I think that.
Mr. Co-Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that could go in with our discussion, general discussion of highway safety and that, so.
I think, I agree. I think that does fit.
Yeah, and lump all of those in there.
Let's make sure we have not missed anything. Committee, Mr. Co-Chairman?
So, Mr. Chairman, one issue that has continually cropped up, and I've discussed this with Representative Baker, is a good look at the congestion and safety issues between Green River and Rock Springs. I think we need to take a look at that. I know the department did some work a while ago. I think we all need a refresher on that work, and then a review of potential actions there.
You know, Mr. Co-Chairman, I agree. I think the time has come. I even wonder if we may want to consider committee having one of our meetings over in that part of the world so we can get a good look. And that leads us right into, by the way, the co-chairman and I have determined that turnaround time for the second meeting of our transportation committee is way too tight. So we are now looking at the 23rd, 24th of August, late August, for that second meeting. Okay, so if everybody would take note of that. That's a little aside, and back, our first one is last of April?
First week of May.
First week of May. Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, first week of May. My recollection is it's the, well, I can tell you I have the calendar.
Would you like the dates, Mr. Chairman?
Heather, that would be terrific.
3rd and 4th.
Oh, okay.
I've got a real calendar in front of me.
Wow, that's
Correct.
really terrific.
It's highlighted even.
Okay, so, but anyway, back to the congestion issue. Representative, do you have anything you'd like to add on that front, or?
No, Mr. Chairman,
thoughts from the committee?
I appreciate the committee's attention, and I do think that it would be very valuable to hold a committee meeting there and really see the road that's available and the issues that are related to it. Yeah, so I absolutely in support of it. Thank you.
Okay, committee, what else?
Representative Burke, you agree?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would agree. We continue to hear, the idea of having another lane and congestion through there. And being from there, we get to see that. But having the committee come in, such as we did with the truck parking initiative coming over at Fort Steele, gives us a better eye on that. And I think having that interaction to see what we're actually dealing with over there could actually put a lot better, conversation to the topic. So I would agree. Thank you.
Anything else? Senator? Senator McEwen, anything? Okay. Well, we're good on the Senate side, Mr. Co-Chairman. Anything else from your crew?
Mr. Chairman, did have one request and it came out of a bill that I believe passed, to look at titling for older mobile homes that have never had a title. I don't think that's a major issue, but it leads to, I think it's about 25 years, there are a number of mobile homes out there that were never titled, and it leads to some issues for people to get a title.
Mr. Co-Chairman, I have one of those.
Oh.
It's parked at Alcova. And somebody told me one time that they couldn't hook up to that and pull it anywhere. I said, what are you talking about? Well, yeah, so there's something there. And I'm looking at Rossetti back there, Mr. Rossetti.
Can we have one of our committee meetings there so we can?
Yeah, take you for a little ride on the pontoon, and just give you the full experience of where that mobile home is. I think that's a good call, Representative.
And Mr. Chairman, I think we can put that in with the licensing and that for trailers and RVs and combine those to combine some of these topics.
No, I think that's appropriate. Proceed, Mr. Co-Chairman. You're hitting on some good ones.
Okay, that was okay, and one that Representative Obermuller raised, and I'm not sure how to address this, but with the sources of funding for roads and a number of the issues that come up,
Mr. Chairman,
with the department. So I'd let Representative Obermuller
explain
that. It's number 10 on my list here.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I think the testimony of the stakeholders here today kind of narrowed that to a couple issues of interest. The WyoLink issue and the aeronautics funding. So I think the stakeholders have kind of taken the lead on what they're interested in this time around. So I'm good with that.
Representative, if it is, for example, WyoLink that YDOT wants us to focus on, maybe we take a sliver like that and see if we can't examine some sort of permanent resource that we don't have to every year bring up WyoLink. But yeah,
I would agree. I would very much agree.
I do appreciate all of you committee members giving a little bit of an idea to us chairman what you think the items of importance are on the list. That helps us, and please get it to us right away before we leave tomorrow. And then next week, Mr. Co-Chairman and I will get our heads together with our legal staff, our Heathers, and we will kind of get mapped out. What we try to do as chairman is to set those meetings so we maximize our time together. We've got some chairmen over here that know about that as well. So you can only get so much work done, and so in those 3 meetings, you have to package things appropriately, and that's what we'll do and get back to everybody. So that just about wraps it up.
I have one more thing.
Mr. Co-Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just one last thing, and I'm glad to see a number of people still here. I'd like to just thank all of the staff for the help we've gotten during the interim, the help during this session. I know sometimes we aren't the easiest 2 chairmen to work with and that, but did want to thank you for all of the work and that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Mr. Co-Chairman. I think we're done, committee. That doesn't mean you can't get a hold of us if something comes up, if you think of something. But we'll go to work and put together hopefully 3 really good meetings. And we look forward to the work ahead. And thanks for all your efforts during the session.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Anderson wants to head up the special study team. Yeah. All right.
So we're adjourned.
We're adjourned, everybody.